Hi, and there she is.
Hello.
Oh, perfect timing.
Hello, everyone, and happy Monday.
Mm-hmm.
And it is the night of empowered women who empower women, but it is open to all, and welcome to all. Tonight, I'm looking forward to doing a more of a topic, I guess. However, when we maneuver through this, ladies, I would love to. Okay, first let's say hi. Hi, everyone.
Hi, everyone.
Hello.
How are you guys doing, Kim? I see
Good,
that you have
doing
your Wi-Fi's back.
Yes, I'm all set.
Yay. That
Yay.
must have been so frustrating. I can't even imagine.
Yes. Oh, that's right. I'm so sorry about that. That was so awful.
Oh, no worries.
Mm.
The
No
Friday,
Wi-Fi for 3
the
days.
Friday gang just got me. That's all right.
Sorry about that.
Of course,
I'll be back again,
where's
I
Kim?
promise.
Every other comment. Where's Kim? Where's Kim?
Oh, I'm so sorry.
I'm sorry, she's not here. It's just me. Can we?
Our Wi-Fi was out from like 8 in the morning till 6 at night for 3 days in a row. It was so hard because you don't realize how much stuff is connected to Wi-Fi now. Everything.
It's
So yeah, it was a pain.
It's frightening.
But we're through it. We're done.
Aw.
And Andrea, how are you doing?
I'm doing great. Thank you very much. Coming to you from the living room
I was just
instead
going
of
to say,
the other little room I use.
we're hanging out with Andrea in her living room tonight, so that's
great.
it's all good. All right, well, good to see you guys, and good to see the whole family here. Hi, everyone. Okay, so tonight we are going to talk about, and I'm just going to go ahead and start sharing the screen and kind of chit-chatting with you guys because, okay, here we go. Sharing the screen. And how do I do that? Share and
And it's exciting for Kim and I because we don't know what the topic is tonight.
Yeah, they don't even know, you guys. They don't even know. All right. So here women who dressed as men and made history. Now, we're only gonna be covering a few, you guys, but however, if any of them, Andrea or Kim, like reach out to you and want to talk tonight and bring in some messages, go ahead and kind of, tap into that, or just kind of the general overall, like, women, risking their lives to survive and do the things that they wanted to do, however you want to do it. But I thought either one or a couple of these women may want to talk, or we're just going to talk about it all together. And it's just kind of the topic of the globe right now, isn't it? Okay, so women who dressed as men and made history. So here we go. We're diving in. Here's an old newspaper, and it says "Adventurous Lives of Women in Trousers." And they have a little article here on that. So let's see. There we go. I'll figure this out, you guys. Don't worry. Okay, so we're going to start way back in 1479 to 1458. I don't know why. Anyway, it was written like this. So is this how they did the time back then in BCE? They went backwards. Anyway, is that really?
Well, we're going backwards from 0, right? So 0 till now is 2023, and 0 into prehistory.
Oh, that's right.
Goes backwards.
There you go. And there you have it. All right. So we have here, but let's start off. So Pharaoh, pirate, soldier, spy. Most have heard of, before we get to this gal here, most have heard of Joan of Arc, right? But throughout history and across the cultures, there have been a great number of women who have dressed in male attire in order to fulfill the roles and that had traditionally been reserved for men. Many disguised their identities, sometimes taking their secret to the grave, while others were brazen and even celebrated by their contemporaries. While their stories have largely been lost to time, there are some that made their mark on history. And so we're going to start out here with Hatshepsut. For nearly 20 years, she ruled Egypt as one of the few female pharaohs in history of ancient Egypt. Her rule began when her husband died and her stepson was too young to be pharaoh. Because of her unorthodox rise to power, she made efforts to legitimize herself in the role. In addition to leading military expeditions and expanding trade, it is believed she also dressed in the attire typically worn by male kings. Depictions of her range from a physically female form adorned with pharaonic male accoutrements to images of her as physically male king with a man's chest and build, including a beard. Interesting, right? So that is her. And then we're going to move here to Kit Kavanaugh. And Kit Kavanaugh comes in 1667 to 1739. Irish-born Christian, went by Kit, disguised herself as a man and joined the British Army as a dragoon in 1693 with the intentions of finding her husband, not to to find a husband, but to find her actual husband. She didn't marry. She didn't go in there to find a husband. To find her husband. Okay. I digress. Who had been drafted the year before. Over the next decade, she served under the Duke of Marlborough, fighting the French. She eventually found her husband and convinced him to keep her secret so she could continue to serve. She went on to distinguish herself on the battlefield through multiple campaigns during the War of the Spanish Succession in 1702 and 1703. She was wounded several times throughout her military career, and it was after she suffered a battle injury in 1706 that required surgery that her identity was discovered. Though she was discharged, she was discharged, you guys. She remained with the dragoons, serving as the officer's cook. Can you imagine? After her husband was killed in battle, she remarried 2 more times and retired from the army in 1712 and opened an inn. Kavanaugh was granted a lifetime pension by Queen Anne and was given a military burial when she passed. But can you imagine? Oh, okay. You're a woman. You can be cook. You can be a cook. Right. All right. So here we go to Anne Bonny and Mary Read. Anne Bonny lived from 1697 to 1782, and Mary Read from 1685 to 1721. Irish-born Anne Bonny grew up in Charleston, South Carolina. In 1718, she married a poor sailor named James Bonny and left for the Bahamas. Once there, Anne spent her time in saloons and seducing pirates. She eventually left Bonny for Captain John Calico Jack. Is this I feel like I'm reading a little fairy tale. Okay. And launched her pirating career by joining Rackman's crew. On board, Anne lived as a woman most of the time, but during engagements with other ships, she wore the attire of a man, including a loose tunic, trousers, sword on her hip, and pistols tucked in her sash. Wow. Okay. So then we move into English-born Mary Read, had been dressed as a boy as a child by her mother, who rented her out as a servant to make ends meet. At age 13, she served on the British warship carrying bags of gunpowder to the crew. Later joined the Army of Flanders and eventually fell in love with her bunkmate, to whom she divulged her secret and her entire regime soon after. So then Mary quit the army and married the soldier, but after he died a short time later, she resumed her life as a man and sailed for the West Indies on a Dutch ship, which was captured by English pirates led by Calico Jack. The crew, believing Mary to be a fellow Englishman, encouraged her to join them. Well, so you can see that why they combined these two. While there were various theories as of how Anne discovered Mary's secret, what is known is that the two became friends and confidants. They fought side by side during battles and even led their crew in violent raids. In 1720, their ship was overpowered by one of the governor's vessels, and Calico Jack surrendered. The two women stood trial in a Jamaican courtroom, and both of them pleaded not guilty to all charges. Okay. Wow.
Their life should be a movie.
Right? 100%. So now we're going to look at Hannah Snell here, and there's only a few more. So Hannah Snell, 1723 to 1792. Englishwoman Hannah Snell assumed the identity of her brother-in-law, James Gray, after her child died and her husband deserted her. For 4 years, she served in the British Royal Marines. In 1748, she fought in the siege of Pondicherry, where the British attempted to seize French colony in India. Hannah was wounded several times during her naval service, including suffering a musket shot to the groin. She purportedly operated on herself to remove the musket ball to ensure her gender remained concealed. Wow. In 1750, she revealed her true identity to her shipmates, and she was granted an honorable discharge and even a military pension. Snell later sold her story to a London publisher and eventually opened a pub in London named The Female Warrior. You go, Hannah. All right.
Wow.
Now we have Deborah Sampson, and she's from 1760 to 1827. New England native Deborah Sampson had a fervent interest in colonial and British politics during the American Revolution. In May of 1782, she enlisted in the Continental Army disguised as a man using the alias Robert Shirtliff. She fought in several battles, including the siege of Yorktown, and was wounded multiple times. In constant fear that her identity would be revealed, she often tended to her own injuries, including once using metal probes to remove musket balls from her leg. During the cold march north after Yorktown, Sampson succumbed to brain fever and was taken to a hospital in Philadelphia, where her condition was considered grim. The attending physician discovered that she was a female, but did not divulge her secret. He treated her until she was fully recovered and discharged from the army. Afterwards, Sampson returned to England, where she resumed wearing female attire and went on to marry and have children. Her experience in the Continental Army began to attract attention, and in the late 1790s, Herman Mann published Sampson's memoirs. He also wrote a lecture of her adventures, which Sampson adapted to her own liking and toured across New England. As word of her story spread, she became an acquaintance of Paul Revere, and several events were held in honor of her heroism. She was awarded pensions from the state of Massachusetts and the federal government. The back of her tombstone in Rockridge Cemetery in Sharon, Massachusetts reads, Deborah Sampson, Gannett, Robert Shurtleff, the female soldier, 1781 to 1783. Wow. Okay. So then we have Charlie Parkhurst. Very interesting story here with Charlie. 1812 to 1879. Called the best whip in California, Charlie Parkhurst was legendary 6-horse stagecoach driver during California's gold rush. The job was dangerous and not for the faint of heart, hauling cargoes of gold through the open desert and over steep mountain passes under constant threat of desperados and Mother Nature. Parkhurst was short and stocky, wore a black eye patch, drank whiskey, and smoked cigars. When Parkhurst died alone in a cabin in 1879, a doctor discovered that the famous stagecoach driver was actually a woman. She was born Charlotte Parkhurst in 1812 in New Hampshire and was abandoned by her parents. It is believed that she ran away from an orphanage dressed as a boy and wound up in Massachusetts, where she worked cleaning horse stables. She also found a mentor who taught her how to handle horses. After working as a stagecoach driver on the East Coast for several years, that's when she journeyed to San Francisco around 1850. She quickly earned a reputation for her ability to move passengers and gold safely through the routes between mining outposts and major towns like San Francisco and Sacramento. By the late 1860s, stagecoach driving became a dying profession with the growth of railroads. She retired and opened a saloon they always open that saloon, don't they?
Yeah.
For a time, and she also worked as a lumberjack in Northern California. Wow. Go, Charlie. Okay, I think this is one more, maybe. We have Sarah Emma Edmonds. Sarah left rural, so she was 1841 to 1898. Oh, I think we do have one more after this. She left rural Brunswick, Canada, to escape her abusive father and an arranged marriage at 16. She took a job as a traveling book salesman under the alias Franklin Thompson and found that customers really accepted her disguised as a man. She later landed in Hartford, Connecticut, and was hired as an American publishing company selling book subscriptions. So in December of 1860, when the country was on the brink of civil war, the company sent her west to Flint, Michigan. When the war was declared in 1861, Edmonds enlisted in the Union Army, and she joined the 2nd Michigan Volunteer Infantry as Franklin Thompson. She was the first Battle of Bull Run and the Battle of Williamsburg. In 1862, Edmonds contracted malaria and began experiencing recurrent health issues. She decided that she would need to desert in order to be treated without revealing her identity. She originally planned to return to her regiment once she had recovered, but left her male disguise behind forever once wanted posters appeared for Private Franklin Thompson for desertion. Oh boy. Edmonds eventually moved to Washington, D.C. and worked as a nurse at a military hospital. She published a memoir of her adventures in what she claimed to have been a spy for the Union Army and carried out 11 missions behind enemy lines. There you have it.
Wow.
Her 2 disguises. Okay. All right. Where are we at here? Okay. We have Isabelle here, Eberhart, 1877 to 1904. She was born in Switzerland, was an explorer who lived and traveled extensively throughout North Africa. She was well educated, spoke multiple languages. I think there might be a movie on her, maybe. Where am I? Oh, okay. And she journeyed to North Africa with her mother, and they both converted to Islam. When her mother died later that year, Eberhart stayed and made her home in North Algeria, disguised as a man. She went by the alias C. Mohammed Asadi, which enabled her to travel within Arabic society. She married Salman Inni, an Algerian soldier, in 1901. Eberhart wrote about her travels, which were published in several books and French newspapers at the time. So that's pretty brave.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so then we have Frances here. She was born in 1830. We don't know when she passed. Okay, so Clayton journeyed across the Midwest seeking help to receive back pay owed to her late husband, who had died during the Civil War. She spoke to reporters along the way about her previous life as a Union soldier. According to Clayton, when fighting began, she and her husband decided to enlist together. The Minnesota couple joined the Missouri Regiment, and Frances disguised as a man under the alias Jack Williams for months. The two fought side by side until her husband succumbed to a bullet on the front lines at the Battle of Stones River. Frances told reporters that she had stepped over his corpse during the conflict. Mm-hmm. Wow. Shortly after, she revealed her true identity and was discharged from the Army. Several newspapers reported her story throughout the 1863 to 1865. Additionally, she had pictures taken of herself in the Union military uniform, as you can see here. There is also no records that she ever received or sought out a military pension for herself. Okay, and here's the last one, you guys. All right, so here we have Sapper, Dorothy Lawrence. She went by the nickname of Sapper. 1896 to 1964. During the First World War, Englishwoman Dorothy Lawrence aspired to be an investigative journalist, and she contacted several British newspapers offering to work as a war correspondent in France. All of the editors refused to hire her, believing that the work was too dangerous for a woman. Undeterred, Lawrence disguised herself as a man and, using the alias Dennis Smith, joined the British Army. For 10 days, she worked in the trenches on the Western Front and laid mines in no man's land under fire from shrapnel and shells. Dorothy began experiencing fainting fits, so she turned herself in and revealed her identity. Authorities were first suspicious that she was a spy and detained her in the French convent, but before she was released. She was forced to swear on an affidavit promising not to tell the public how she fooled the British military. Mm-hmm. That did not stop Lawrence from publishing an account of her experiences in her memoir in 1919. So, wow. There you have it. All these ladies who dressed like a man and made history. All right, I'm going to stop the share here.
And it's been going on for clearly thousands of years.
Yeah.
Talking about pharaohs.
Yeah.
Right.
Right.
Back, right. Yeah.
And different motivations for each. It feels like some did it to hide from their past life, maybe. Escaped.
Yep. And also like to want to do what they wanted to do. But in order to do that, they had to dress like a man, or to dress like a man to be safe, right?
Yep, another reason.
Mm-hmm. To be safe to travel. So
society restraints and society issues cause some of them. And it's curious about the husbands of them too. I find that very interesting. Like there must have not been any stigma to marry someone who identified as one way or the other. I don't know. Does it seem a little bit lighter back then? Maybe it wasn't a big deal.
Yeah, that's a good question to ask.
Mm-hmm.
The main theme that's coming out with this, like the whole thing of what I'm like tapping into right here, is that the main story, the main whole story here is having to shift your identity to be able to move about freely. It goes to show that women weren't free.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And that's kind of what they're kind of looking at, that
and women weren't allowed in certain places. Like if a woman wanted to serve in the army, no. Mm-hmm. And then she had to pretend to be a man.
What else is coming through here? I'm curious about the Pharaoh and her strength and the length that she went to continue to serve her people. I'm sensing that they're, without hesitation. And that she was like a born leader. So again, going back to almost being like you were saying, Andrea, born, like it was almost purpose that she was in that position. However, she was a woman. So, but she literally, even though she identified more with like that masculine side, actually, is what I'm sensing from her.
And also that men were respected more. So if you were a strong woman and wanted to do something powerful, like run a country or an army or whatever, women weren't respected in those roles, right? Women weren't seen as those, strong, authoritative, whatever the words may be. So when you made yourself a man, then all of a sudden people would talk to you different or respect you if you had an opinion or had something to say. There was a shift in acceptance when they came across as men, which is terrible. And I know we face that even today.
Well, I mean, it's still here. It's still here. And she was beyond the negative time.
Yeah, like 3,000 years ago.
So, wow.
So I got a few things. I'll just kind of tell you what I got because I could hear different things for different people. With the Kit Kavanaugh, I heard her say that there are many like her. There are many soldiers that did this. It wasn't just her, and that she loved what she personally loved about it was the camaraderie the kind of dependence that soldiers have on each other. She really liked that. With Mary Read, and with Anne Bonny, I got that there was a love for the water, being on the water, around the water, trying to live and exist on the water, that kind of thing. It was very much about boats and that kind of thing for them. And then for Charlie Parkhurst, I got, I could just feel this intense determination. And I also got that she was a great navigator. She would use her intuition for routes. And that's why she was so good at getting people from here to there when other people couldn't. I feel like she was she was intuitive. She knew which routes to go, and she would change depending on how she felt. And a lot of men wouldn't do that. They'd just go the route that was on the map or whatever. But she was very much like, I just go by my.
I love that you said that, because when Debbie was telling the story, I felt there's something there. There's a reason why she could do it. Yeah. And I didn't stay with it, but that's what, as soon as you said it, that's it.
Yeah, and I'm getting the chills all over.
That's good. Okay.
100% in using her intuition. She would sense danger one way or the other.
Yeah.
And, to change
her spidey senses would tingle. She didn't know.
And then with Frances Clayton, the Union soldier, I got that she just said that she was an excellent soldier, and that she was a great shooter. That was what she felt she was really, really good at, was shooting. But those were just the things I picked up on. Like, as you kind of went one by one, I would get little hits, little things. But yeah, that's very interesting about the Charlie Parkhurst, because it did seem like she just, that's why she was so good. Mm-hmm. She could just figure, she used her intuition, and it told her which way to go and how to go. And to me, it seemed like it was extremely dangerous. It was a very, very dangerous job.
Taking gold.
Yes, exactly. So dangerous. So that's the. Oh, and when you mentioned Dorothy Lawrence, the first thing that came up was spy. And so I was waiting for you to say something about a spy, but I feel like that in particular really hurt her. That was very, she was very offended that they would think she was a spy. She was very hurt by that, and kind of, I don't know if she didn't get over it, but that was just like a thing that she really, it was just the first thing I heard when you said her name. So she was very hurt by that.
Because it was the opposite. She was there because she loved her country and wanted to serve. She wasn't a spy against her country.
Exactly.
That's not why she was there. And, looking at these women, and we know obviously there's a lot more, and men as well. It's such a shame people can't just be, right, what they want to be, and
utilize people by their strengths.
Yeah,
what they can offer. It's just cloth, people. Literally, it's just cloth. Like,
right. And if women wanted to serve in the militaries or on ships in the past, why weren't they allowed to? Right? Why didn't you go? Great, this is more people to help us save our country, or whatever the case was. But I have a feeling it was the men didn't want to be seen equal to a woman, right?
Right.
How can she defend and be a warrior? That's me. I'm
right. And I'm wondering how much stronger, whatever regiments would have been if they did utilize the strengths of women in it, because like with what's her name that rode the stagecoach, using her intuition. Yep. She's showing me a link to all the women who, going back to the Pharaoh, who she was successful because she had foresight. She had that intuition. She had, and that more what that sensitive side or whatever.
Well, like we talked about last week, the divine feminine, she was tuned in. We know that your intuition, your instincts, your sensories, are heightened when you're tuned into that. So if these women were tuned in, why not utilize that?
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly. Right. And so it's from what I'm hearing from the group is that it has set humanity back. Mm. It has slowed down the progress because of this. Yeah. Because this unwillingness to get out of this thought, the way of thinking, this misogynist, the patriarchal way, and not going by just the strengths of people, but by, oh, you're a woman or you're a man. There's plenty of men that should not be on the battlefield. They actually should be in cooking. They would prefer that, and they would prefer that. And then you have women that absolutely would be best out, on the line, understanding the ins and outs of things and strategy and things like that. It's all mixed, and the rest of it is just clothes. Right? Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That's kind of what I'm hearing here.
Yeah.
I feel the dial really got amped up. I don't know the dates, but I'm thinking like 17 or 1800 with the push of religion, maybe a certain religion, where you weren't supposed to wear pants. And because my great grandmother, I believe she was born in 1900. Obviously she's passed, but her first time to wear pants was when she was 83. She was 83 years old. Wow. The most adorable thing. And it's because she was going to ride a camel in Jerusalem. So she had to wear pants. Isn't that the cutest thing? She went over there on her spiritual journey. She's a very religious woman, but growing up in that time frame in Ontario in a religious lifestyle, you didn't get to wear pants. You weren't supposed. It was frowned upon, right? And I know that when she would see my mom or I wear pants, she still had that old kind of thinking. Mm-hmm. And then when she wore pants, she thought it was great. She said, "Oh, this is so great."
I was going to ask you how she felt about it.
She thought it was great, and there was no stigma or anything. So when did that dial move where it was a religious decision? I feel that, to house women, they have to wear a dress. Mm. And men have to wear pants, right?
Let's talk about that for a second. A dress. It's very vulnerable, dresses.
Mm-hmm.
And in many ways, like you can't in the dresses they have you in, the long skirt, you can't really run. You can't get on and ride things. You're really, really stuck to, your specific movements in those dresses.
Right.
That they had people in. And then, to keep them in this mindset of that vulnerability and I hate to say it, access. So there's so many levels to these dresses, wearing dress. And I'm not saying don't stop wearing dresses, whatever. I'm just saying, take a look at where it came from and why.
Right. And I'm hearing something from, as we're talking about this, from these women that were on the ships, the pirate women that were kind of on the ships, the Anne Bonny and Mary Read, that there's even like little reasons why they didn't want women around. And they're saying even we can't swear around them. We can't be men around them. It's like we have to curtail our behavior around women. And so I think it was at least for some of these time periods, it was, like you said, the women were the feminine in dresses. They couldn't hear bad things. They were very much put on a pedestal and treated like porcelain dolls in a lot of ways, protected from whatever. But they're saying that this was, even just dumb reasons like that were some of the reasons that they didn't want women around. We can't go to the whorehouses if the women are around. We can't go to, whatever. Right. Like all of these little manly men things they do together. We can't get stinking drunk and go shoot our guns or whatever they would want to do, or, swear and spit or whatever. But it's like, we can't be manly men around women.
There would be tons of women who would like to go and shoot with them and have beers, and swear and have a cigarette or whatever they were doing.
100%.
Exactly.
Not only that, and that woman may identify in men's clothes or women's. She might be ultra feminine yet still want to do those things. Like, why can't people
just so if someone wanted to wear a dress, and still, and that's the thing. Again, it's just cloth. You wear what you want to wear. However, they've put they when you go into some of these places, religious places that are still here, women are required to wear a dress, right? Mm-hmm. Why? You know what I mean? Break it down. And so it's like they have to wear a dress. And keep their hair in a bun, or like that, or keep their head covered. There's so many. There's oppression within the design, and so the Pope wears a dress. Yes, Cheryl. So, but
really trying to pigeonhole people into one box or the other. There's only two boxes.
Yeah.
You're a woman or you're a man. That's it. And if you're this one, you do this, and you're this one, you do that. Where is the freedom of the soul?
Exactly. So where's the freedom? So that's the thing, Andrea. We should be free to make the choices we want to make. And luckily, we've come a long way. You and I can choose to wear a dress today or pants, and then that's okay. We're not going to be ostracized for it. But there are still places where you would be in our countries.
Right.
It's really
right. Oh, Roxanne,
getting your head around it. This is like we're being forced into these.
That's where it goes wrong. Right. That's where it goes wrong. If it's forced or mandated.
That's the thing, right? It's always about control. That's what it's about. It's a control thing,
What, yeah.
And like you said, and you're right, Debbie. It is a vulnerability thing. This is what we want you to look like. This is how I can remember, seeing, sitcoms from the 60s and 70s where they're like, you should wear dresses more and things like that. It's like, what?
Yeah. Yeah.
And if I want you to look that way, smile. Like when men say smile, tell you to smile. It's like, no, I know it's a pet peeve of mine too. I'm just like, you smile.
Thank you for that one, Kim. Yes, it's like
we want you to look how we want you to look. So it's like a control thing. No.
Yeah. Oh my goodness. Yeah. Roxanne says, I remember when I was young in the 80s, I worked at a retail and they weren't allowed. Yeah, you weren't allowed to wear pants. I remember working and having dress codes, and you had to wear pantyhose or whatever it's called. You know what I mean? So it's like, oh, that was serious. Yeah.
And heels and, it's always.
Yeah. Okay. Horrible. And I understand if you work and you're working at a restaurant and it's a higher end and you want everyone to kind of dress up, that there's a certain type of expectation in the way that you dress. Okay. So as a server or someone who's greeting at the door, that you dress up.
But that doesn't mean you can wear pants and be dressy.
Exactly. That's where that needs to change. And
the woman this year at the Academy Awards, the woman who was won for scriptwriter, for a screenwriter for Women Talking, she wore a tuxedo.
She wore a tux.
Yeah.
And they're like, why did you wear a tuxedo? And she's like, I'm going to be comfortable. I've got to be here for 5 hours. I'm going to be comfortable.
Exactly.
And she won. And she looked darling.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And the thing is it's literally the freedom to dress how you feel comfortable and how you want to.
How you want to express yourself. And that could change day to day. And I do feel we have made leaps and bounds in this area as a collective species, but not 100%.
Ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's ridiculous.
Yes. Genderizing clothes is just so, it's ridiculous. But again, it's been used for so long as a way to control and have power over. That needs to change. And we're in the middle of that change now. And that's why I chose this subject, because we're right in the middle of the war here with it. And bringing this to the surface, and this is just one, but yes, we need to stop genderizing clothes at all. So if it's a dressy night, it's a dressy night. You dress dressy, however that dressy is to you, not, how, yeah.
And I heard indoctrination, brainwashing as well. So they have sneakily put it in the heads of people for generations, hundreds of years, by their rule that you just start to adopt those. You almost don't even have free thought about it sometimes, right? It's like, oh, I'm going to the Oscars, I have to wear a dress. Well, no, you don't, right? You can choose whatever you want to wear.
Exactly. And don't you remember when, because in days you wore a dress to school, you couldn't play kickball. You'd have to sit down at recess. It was so confining, to wear a dress,
Exactly.
Yeah, I couldn't play on the bars. It was the worst, but you still felt like you had to sometimes wear a dress. And it was just like, no.
But then you have, the uniforms where you had to wear a skirt or the pinafore that was a dress thing for girls. And yes, Kevin, the clothes, colors, toys, and the list goes on for the genderizing of things. It needs to stop. Because that's where the narrative begins, right? As a baby. Oh, let's put them in the little pink dress. And it's so, you know what I mean? So, and I do notice now that I have a new grandbaby that there's a lot more options now as far as colors and the type of clothing. And it's starting to kind of fade into each other, which I like.
And it doesn't matter what you gravitate to. Like, if you want to wear dresses every day, that's great. If you want to wear pants every day, that's great. It shouldn't matter. Like, if I could, I would be wearing a gigantic gown every day with crowns.
With crowns.
Please do.
A long train. And just, out of control, spectacular explosion of femininity. This is what I would like to wear, but it's not my reality.
Please do that, Andrea. Please do not hold back on our account.
Welcome to Lilac Lantern.
Please do that. I love that.
And that's just how I identify. Jewels and crowns.
You identify as royal. That's okay.
But it doesn't matter. Like, I think it's funny. My dad has a fit when I wear jeans that have tears in them. That style.
Yeah.
he just thinks that that's just the worst thing ever. Why people would wear jeans with tears in them, like it's garbage, right?
That is a mind thought of that generation for sure.
I know.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing too, right? These generations come and go, and so when as we move on and these generations are leaving, it will hopefully, it will be different. And it already is different, much different than it was. But I think a lot of this stuff is generational, and it just kind of lingers.
Well, I'm sure back when he was a teenager, he would have got beat by his parents, father, if he had worn torn jeans. You don't do that.
Right. Yeah. And I don't know about you guys, but well, Andrea's closet's full of beautiful gowns.
Tiaras.
Mine is ridiculous, and it's super hard to pack when I go away because I just don't know what am I going to feel like, because I generally it's so eclectic to what I'm feeling. There's no real, you can't tell a gender in my closet because it's just like, what am I feeling like today? Am I going to wear and yeah, I might, and rare, I don't have many like real feminine like dresses, although I do have a couple in case, but it's not my go-to for sure. But sometimes I might want to wear it, and it's there just out of, okay, this is what I feel like today.
It all depends. And that's the freedom of the soul again, right? Letting the soul shine through, and being in tune with yourself day to day, and being in tune with yourself also reflects on the outside, right? So if you're vibing something one day and you want to wear a tuxedo or you want to wear a sundress, that's really when you're in tune with yourself, right?
Exactly.
And being able to express that. And it's a real crime, as we see, when people can't. And I applaud those women that you showed us today. And the two women together whose stories ended up tangling together, that's got to be a movie. That should be a movie. Somebody should do that.
Yeah, that has to be a movie.
Exactly.
And I'm surprised that, I also think, how did they not know? Because back then, not that you would know, but like nowadays, people can get surgery or take hormone pills that can help if they choose to identify as another gender. But I applaud them, because they wouldn't have had those options that people have today if they want to express themselves even further. And then I think about the women and having their periods and dressed as men.
That's where I always go.
How did they do that?
That's where I go.
Secret.
That's where I always go, Andrea, too. That period thing, and being in war, and
there's no way I could. I'm sorry.
No.
Not with the luck I had with mine. There's no way I could do anything like that.
No.
Again,
Yeah, I always think
that they, took a chance and expressed themselves despite everything going against them. Amazing.
Gigi by the Sea says, in a past life regression, I was rushing down a tall grass hill wearing a long dress. I was so frustrated, so impractical. I was aggravated. Yes. 100%. Can't even with the petticoats and the all the restrictions, and yeah. Anyways, we are making change, everyone. We are changing this. We're changing the underneath energy of it, where once it was meant to keep us contained. We are breaking free of that, and let's continue to do that. So when we make a choice of what to wear, we're doing it from freedom and not from any old narratives that are trying to keep us in line at any level.
Exactly.
So if you want to wear a dress, you wear that dress and you wear it proudly. And if you want to wear jeans, torn jeans, and a tie with a cute shirt, do it, and do it proudly, because you want to, and that's what you feel like.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And how you do your hair and makeup or no makeup. What are you tuning into? What are you vibing that day? Instead of it being an outside pressure. Lord knows I don't leave the house without some kind of makeup on because of the outside pressure, which I shouldn't feel, but I got to work on that, right?
And that's it though too. It's when you do feel good on days, when you feel like I feel like myself, I feel great. Take note of what you're wearing, what you look like that day. And do you have makeup on that day? Maybe you are living someone else's narrative of what, that you didn't even realize, So yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's good. That's resonating with me.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And what I'm hearing, and I do feel it's still the one who drove the stagecoach. I forgot her name.
Charlie.
To continue to really live out your freedom. It's more about, your soul self than anything. Yeah, we're talking about clothes and things like that. But she's saying, live out your soul's truth, regardless of the fabric. Yeah.
And celebrate someone who is who's living their soul truth. If you whatever, your neighbor, your relative, whatever, who come, or you have family dinner and your niece comes when she's wearing a suit and you're like, what is she doing? Like, just be like, celebrate it. Just say,
exactly,
you look amazing. Where'd you get that suit? Like, that's awesome.
Yes.
Celebrate those who are attempting to be their truth.
That's so important, Andrea. I think that's so important.
Yeah, very much.
Yeah, these ladies are amazing, Debbie. Thank you for bringing them up and bringing attention to them. Yeah,
inspiring, and championing all of us. So I thank them all for allowing us to tell their story, and thank you guys for bringing in some more of their story and truths to all of us.
Thank you.
And, to the family here who is continue with this energy and change the world. We're doing it together, guys.
That's right.
So, I love this. Lisa says, I wear sweats. Oh, there you go.
Own it. Right? Rock it. I love this discussion tonight, Debbie. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, family. We will see you next week on Kim's channel. On Kim's channel next week. And so we'll see you there. Until then, wear whatever the hell you want. Love you.
Bye.
Bye.